Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a crucial topic: the role of African governments in promoting affordable housing. The social and economic transformation agenda in Africa revolves around affordable housing. The high rate of population growth and speeding urbanization taking place across the continent have established an unprecedented need in decent and affordable shelter. By 2050, according to UN Habitat, it is projected that, in Africa, the population will have doubled in the urban areas, with more than 70% of the population increase in the informal settlements. However, given this fact, formal housing delivery has not been able to match the demand. With over 56 million housing units, the continent has an excess of more than half of the population in low and middle-income households. Institutional and policy frameworks of affordable housing. The initial pillar of government intervention in the affordable housing is the formulation of consistent policy and institutional structures. Housing policy gives the strategic direction by which governments clearly present goals, allocate resources, and coordinate stakeholders. In the last 20 years, some African countries initiated extensive housing policies that tend to expand access, enhance quality, and create governmental financing and fiscal incentives. Funding has been one of the biggest hindrances to the provision of affordable housing in Africa. Most of the urban families have too little to be able to obtain commercial mortgage. Finance and government budgets are limited by other priorities. This renders the government financing and fiscal inducements vital to bridging the gap in housing affordability. African governments can abandon the direct subsidization model and adopt strategic financial support or crowd in on private investment, at the same time keeping the costs affordable by reconsidering their fiscal policy. Such interventions can result in strong housing markets that cut across income groups when they are coupled with macroeconomic stability and transparency. Land, infrastructure, and urban planning. Affordable housing is based on the accessibility of good locations and infrastructure. However, in Africa, the systems of land in cities are highly unequal, fragmented, and inefficient. The governments are involved in the development of land, reforming tenure systems and basic infrastructure investment to ensure that development of housing becomes viable and sustainable. Urban land is very expensive, and there is a shortage of this land. The high speed of urbanization has overvalued the cost of land, thereby moving affordable housing development to the outskirts of the city, where employment and services are not available. Governments should therefore step in with land banking, releasing the land to people, and reforms on regulations that should stimulate mixed-income development. Rwanda is another example of transparency and efficiency through its land tenure regularization program that has digitalized land records and made the ownership clear. Institutional efficiency and regulatory reform. One of the greatest obstacles to affordable housing provision in Africa is complicated and old regulatory structures. Prolonged approval time, duplication of mandates, and non-standardization add to the cost and discouragement of investors of projects. Regulatory reform should thus be the priority of the governments in order to develop a more effective and transparent housing ecosystem. This is because in most African cities, it can take months or even years to get the building permit due to red tape involved in the process. By making these processes simpler and more digitalized, it is possible to save a lot of time and money. As an example, the e-permit system in Rwanda gives developers an opportunity to submit building approvals online, which reduces waiting periods by more than 50%. On the same note, Ethiopia has simplified its construction codes to accept new materials and technology that will facilitate quicker and cheaper construction, public-private partnerships, and cooperation models. With limited finances, no African government will satisfy housing demand using the government funds. PPP has hence become an inevitable tool of essentially increasing affordable housing delivery. These partnerships are based on the efficiency and investment capability of the private sector and are consistent with the public policy agenda. Social inclusion and sustainable development goals. Affordable housing is not only a structural problem but also a pillar on social justice and sustainable development. The governments of the African countries have a moral and constitutional duty to make sure that every citizen, irrespective of income and background, is provided safe and decent shelter. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 11, SDG 11, is the goal that focuses on the urban sustainability of cities. It is called Make Cities Inclusive, Safe, Resilient, and Sustainable. Governments should thus make policies more than figures by ensuring gender equity and greenness. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.